All right. So, as I said, I am your instructor, Sammy. I work for Goosefoot. So, if you're not familiar with Goosefoot, it is a community nonprofit on South Whidbey Island. We do a lot of business development. We do a lot of community events, a lot of different things. I know some of you guys I've worked with personally. So, um, yeah, I'm excited to see everybody here. Let's see. Community volunteer, streetwear brand in the Navy in California. Fantastic, Eugene. I'd love to hear how you're with class. Um, oh, you're doing a graphic design class in January. That's awesome. Delaware is a pet sitting business. Oh, that's fantastic. Goose, awesome. Hi, Rebecca. Love to see somebody from the Goose. Shannon just finished master's in creative writing. Oh, that's fantastic. Graphics are super important to promote both your own writing and anything you might work with other people. So that's really cool. Yeah, we've got a nice, good, diverse group. Another thing I forgot to mention earlier, I'm not the fount of paternal knowledge. You guys also have a lot of different backgrounds. You've seen a lot of really cool things. You might have tips and tricks. So please feel free to share those with each other in the chat. I'd love to, classes are more fun when everybody participates. So with that said, let's get started on the presentation. So a couple of very, very general tips. Probably going to spend a lot of time on this, kind of a one by one. Biggest thing with graphic design is to stay focused. That sounds like a really dumb thing to say, but that is probably the number one place that people slip up. You try to put too many things into one single piece, whether it's because you're purchasing an ad run or print costs, anything like that. You think, oh, I can get more bang for my buck if I cram multiple messages into this one piece. That is not true. You will actually lose diminishing returns the more messages you cram into one piece. Any graphics, any public communication pieces are far punchier when they are focused on one, max two things. So the more you can get your one single message across in each single piece, the more impactful you're going to be. That might mean you need to put out multiple pieces. And I think I have an example of that later when I'm showing you good examples. But don't try to do too much with one piece. You cannot talk to everybody with the same piece. You cannot cover all of the subjects with the same piece. So the more focused you are, the more successful that's going to be. And hopefully whatever graphic you're preparing and wherever you're posting it, it will push people to your website or social media where they can learn more without having to be on that one singular piece. On that note, less is more. Even when you're just focused on one thing, the more focused you are, the punchier it can be. So if you have a new product to sell or a service that you're really pushing, don't say everything about that, because that can definitely get overwhelming. And we're all surrounded by so much noise every day, all day, that the more stuff you cram into one piece, the more people just kind of glaze over it and keep moving. But if you can tell your thing really focused in as few words as possible with the fewest but most important points, it's going to do a lot more work for you. And I wanted to say too, I think I forgot to mention this earlier, I will be sending out these slides to everybody. So don't feel too bad, like you got to scramble to write down everything I'm saying. I will email all these slides out after this class, and the recording will be up on YouTube for you to watch back later. Anyway, back to the slides. If you can cut it, do cut it. If there is not a super vital piece on there, if it's just, a review quote, something like that, that might be nice, but doesn't really do anything for you, take a look at cutting that out and what the piece looks like. If it looks better without it, then leave it off. If something is missing, and this is, I have a, last point, but it's really important to get other eyes on it. If something doesn't make sense, that's when you put it back in. But the less words you use, the less points you make, the better. So a lot of these later ones you can absolutely break when you have more graphic design experience, but especially for newbies, stick to simple basics. Once you know the rules, you can break them, but you have to learn the rules first. And so one of the important rules is for a piece, whether it's a whole flyer or brochure, whether it's a social media tool, anything like that, stick to one, max two different kinds of fonts. I've got an example in here later that's got, every single piece of text on it is in a different font, and it gets really distracting. It looks really amateurish. But if you just stick to one kind of font, way better for you. You look more put together, more professional, and all of your pieces work together. If possible, you should be using the same font on your website, on all the graphics you produce, on any brochures or educational literature. Anything that you put out should be using those same 1 to 2 fonts. Might be good to have a contrast, but stay focused. I'm hoping to learn more about apps that you can use. I have a slide for that near the end. Big thing for me, I think, is very important. Don't be afraid to put people in your pictures. A lot of businesses are so afraid of permissions and liability and all of that kind of miasmic world that they will use or take pictures that have 0 people in them. This is a very bad idea. We as human beings project ourselves into an image better when there's a person to project ourselves onto. And especially restaurants are a great example of this. I work with a lot of restaurants who provide me with pictures of their restaurant space completely empty. As human beings, when you walk into a restaurant that is completely empty, your thought is, oh, this must not be very good. Like, or something is wrong here. There, if nobody's here, why am I? And that's true with pictures too. If there's nobody in the picture, it's slightly unsettling in a way most people can't put their finger on. And it doesn't have to be a full person. You can get pictures. We're very lucky at Goosefoot. Let me see, do I have this brochure here? I do. So this is a brochure I did recently. And some pictures don't have people in them, like the farmer's market or the art gallery. But, we got somebody in for the tap room and we got people in for dancing. The more people you can put in it, the more it's like, oh, this is a cool place. I want to be there. Really easy for somebody to project it into. And even if it's not a full person, if you have any, somebody in here said they have a streetwear brand, or sometimes I have some folks come from jewelry lines, even if it's just a hand or a foot or like somebody's back, it's really easy to get permissions. You can either recruit models, your friends and family or customers, just be like, hey, will you come pose for this picture? I'll buy you a pizza or anything nice and easy. Or something that we do a lot at Goosefoot for our events is we'll put up signs saying, photography in place. If you enter this area, you are consenting to be on camera. But honestly, even if you don't take those steps, we are in such a camera heavy society. Everybody is carrying cameras around in their pocket. People are taking pictures of their food as they're walking around. Cameras are everywhere. So for the most part, pictures that you take are probably fine. It's always best to ask people permission if you can, but it can just be as simple as like, hey, can I use this picture? Great. The threat of lawsuit is really not a thing. I have not heard of somebody winning a suit of somebody using a picture of them in a very long time, despite even big, IKEA has taken family pictures and put them in some of their products to showcase. So the threat of lawsuit is not super high. The one exemption to this is pictures of children. If you have any pictures of kids, make sure you get permission for those. People can be very protective of minors for very good reason. But again, it's just as simple as, hey, can I use this picture? Get it in an email if possible. That is always the best. Stage pictures are always great. Inviting people over deliberately to take pictures. So yeah, but put people in your pictures. It's way more inviting. It's way more welcoming. Not sure if it'll be covered in class, but one of the topics I was hoping to learn more is on typography. I don't talk a lot in depth on typography in this workshop, but feel free to email me any questions. I can spend entire days just looking through typography. So yeah, unfortunately, it is a little more in depth than this class is going to go, but it's a subject I love. Okay, on the subject of fear, white space. White space is your friend. So white space is an area on the piece. It doesn't actually have to be white, but it is the area where nothing else is going on. So on this slide here, all of this space between the words and the picture frame with me in it, this is all white space. Some, especially new people to graphic design, cram every single space they can with text, whether that's to get as much across as they can or feel like they're not wasting space, or because white space is scary and you feel like you're wasting it if you just leave it blank. But white space gives our brains very necessary time to break and relax. When it's just crammed with text, you know, if this slide was nothing but a huge block of text, you're exhausted before you've even started reading it. And most people will skip over it without looking at it at all. Especially when you're using, say, social media or web graphics with very few words, the more white space, the punchier your piece is going to be. And I definitely have examples of this later. So don't be afraid to leave areas blank. It really emphasizes the areas you do want emphasized. Whereas if you cram every corner possible full, it's going to get exhausting and people are going to skip it. I see, especially a lot of amateurs again, try to do funky designs, putting things in weird or strange places, turning things, making them crooked, because they're trying to be fresh and unique. But we are very comfortable with straight lines and right corners. We like things that are nice and neat and orderly. This side of the slide where everything is nice and lined up is much nicer to look at than this side where everything goes out to different lengths. So again, you can break rules once you know them, but while you're still learning, it's very important to stick to basics. Keeping things nice and even and lined up perfectly is going to be far better. And something you can see a lot of professionals tweak on because it is infuriating when it happens is when something is just not quite lined up. So say my picture in the top corner here. That is far more satisfying than that, even though you can't necessarily know why. It's because the edge of my frame does not line up with the edge of this line. And you could spend ages just getting that pixel perfect lineup. I know I can anyway. So stick to nice, simple layouts. It may seem boring to you, but you don't want somebody to look at a piece and be like, wow, look at this layout. You want somebody to look at a piece and be like, wow, okay, I get the message. I get what they want me to take away from this or what they want me to learn from it. So stick to that. You don't have to be too flashy to be successful. I really should have moved this much farther up on the slide, but here works too. Figure out the purpose of the piece from the very beginning before you start designing anything else. Who's the target customer? Who do you want to actually pick this up? What end goal do you want? What are they actually supposed to do with this piece that you're putting out into the world? Where are you using it? Is it going to be a print thing? Is it going to be on screen? Is it going to be on mobile phones? Is it going to be on a big computer? You know, figure out where it's going. These are going to impact so many design choices. If your target customer are older retired folks, large fonts are your friend, because as you get older, your eyes start to fail. Really small typeface is really hard to read. I don't know what size of screen everybody's on, but I'm sure the tagline under the Goosefoot logo is tricky to read for some of you guys. Whereas younger folks, they're going to have different requirements. Something that is going to print is going to have different quality and size and layout requirements than something you can put up on your social media feeds or your website. And even between social media feeds, If you're making a piece for Instagram, it really should be square. Or if you're doing an Instagram story, it should take up a vertical space so that it takes up the whole screen. If you're doing something on Facebook, square works, horizontal is best. So something that is wider than it is tall. Some sites have very strict requirements. You know, a Facebook banner is a very specific size versus a post, you can put pretty much anything. Twitter used to automatically crop images to a certain size. So anything outside of that cropping would be lost unless somebody clicked through to open it up. I believe they've stopped doing that on single items, but they're still doing it on 2 to 4 pictures. So again, figuring out where it's going, who's going to be looking at it, and what you want them to do with it is going to impact what words you pick, what fonts and colors you go with, what images you run with. So knowing those at the very beginning is vital before you ever start actually making the thing. Make sure you have a call to action on your piece. You might think, I don't need to tell everybody what to do. This is very self-evident, but remember that you are the one that knew what you wanted people to do with it. They might not be able to intuit that from the beginning. And also, you spent ages and ages staring at this graphic piece, making it, framing it up, reorganizing it, editing it. Everybody else is looking at it for maybe a few seconds. So you need to tell them straight up in very plain language what it is you want them to do. Call now, click here, visit the website, come in person, visit us before this date, share with friends, whatever it is you're hoping for them to do with whatever graphic piece you're making. Tell them that in as very short and plain language as possible. Otherwise, you're going to lose people who might look at whatever piece you created and go, cool, and then set it down. So make sure you are explicitly saying what it is you want them to do and make it as easy as possible for them to do that. If you want them to call, put your phone number on the piece. If you want them to buy tickets, give them the address or give them the website where they can do that. If whatever it is you're asking them to do, make it as easy as possible for them to do so, because we are all very busy individuals. We all have lots of stuff to do in our life. So making it as easy as possible to get a yes is how you're going to get yeses. And get a second set of eyes on it before finalizing it. It is inevitable. At some point, you will reach a point where your brain starts self-editing things in. So you might think, oh, I already said that, or I did this thing, and it's not on the piece at all. I used to work with the group up in Coupeville that puts on Musclefest every year. And me and the 2 other people that were doing the poster, we were like, okay, this is great, perfect, nice, simple, still eye-catching and interesting. It has everything it needs to have on it, blah, blah, blah. We print it, run it, get it distributed. And then the mayor of the town goes, hey, this doesn't say Coupeville anywhere on it. Completely skipped our minds. Everybody knows Musclefest is in Coupeville, but not everybody knows that. It's the Penn Cove Musclefest, and Penn Cove is a very large region. So you will start editing things in that are not actually there, or flip side, you will edit things out that are there and are a problem. And we have an author, we have a creative writer in the group. I'm sure you know this very well. You can edit and edit and edit a piece 20 times, and it's not until it's done and published and out that you will find yet another error. So print it off in different fonts, get someone else to look at it for you, get multiple people to look at it for you. If you've been working on it on a screen for ages and ages, print it off on a different piece of paper. These different settings can help stop that effect in our brain of it automatically editing in or out things. And then other people looking at it can also help, because there's a lot of language choices that may be very self-evident to you, but somebody else new to it doesn't understand what you're saying, or the wording is really weird. So get people to look at it if you can. And if not, put it in different formats and places so that you can get fresh eyes on it yourself. Okay, any questions about the general tips? Feel free to ask. I'm gonna take a drink of water real quick. So these are, in my opinion, I really like these. They're nice, simple, punchy showcases of what I was talking about. This first ad on the left side, Remy pencils, it's fine. You know, there's nothing glaringly wrong with it, but every single, there's at least 4 different kinds of font on here. There's very little white space. You know, every single piece around the pencil is completely filled. You've got, you know, taglines and quotes, and you know, just right is underlined in 2 different places. You've got new on the top and in that red bubble. You've got the address, the social media icons, the logo. There's so much happening in such a square, small image in that first one. Again, fine, but the second one is so much more impactful because it's nice and simple and straightforward. It knows what it's trying to say, and it's not filling every possible corner. There's a lot more confidence in the second one. And this is a lot more appealing if it was on a whole page full of other ads with a lot of other stuff going on. This is a nice, simple, punchy piece that lets your eye take a break, but still communicates the message. And, you know, it's got that just right, which was very clearly important to them because they have it in 2 separate places. And it's got the Remy Pencils logo. The address is not important. The web address is not important. The social media icons are not important because by these dimensions, it is probably going on social media anyway. And anybody online can just Google Remy Pencils if they're interested. So much simpler, you know, much more straightforward, much, much more impactful. So another important thing with all of your pieces, whatever it is you're making, you need consistent branding. Every single piece you put out should look like it came from the same organization. Because when you're using entirely different color palettes, fonts, logos, pictures, when you're using different things every single time, you are reinventing the wheel every single time, especially for small businesses without brand name recognition. People don't remember the name of your business until they've seen it over and over and over again. So even if you've got 5 different pieces out, you know, an ad in the local paper, a flyer at the grocery store, your website, your newsletter, and a brochure that you have out on another business's counter, if none of those look like they came from the same business, to somebody else looking at it, it would look like 5 separate businesses are being advertised. You're not building up that recognition, that trust. You're not building up that relationship with your customers. So your website should look similar to your newsletter, should look similar to your Facebook and Instagram pages, should look like your flyers, should look like your brochures. Obviously, there can be little differences. There should be. These are very different formats. But they should use the same color palette. They should use very similar language, if not the same language. You should use the same picture in multiple places, or even if you use different kinds of pictures, use pictures with the same kind of feel to them. You know, lighting, angles, content, all of that should, you know, it should look like it came from the same place. Establish your color palette pretty early on. Most bigger businesses have what they call a style guide, which just lays out, you know, here's the colors to use for, you know, the header, here's the colors to use for body text, links, use these kind, you know, this is how we write out time so that every time you write AM or PM, it's the same everywhere you write it. Do you use M dashes or N dashes? All these little nitpicky things. It's good to get them down into a consistent place. That way it keeps it in mind and consistent for you. But if you ever go out and hire someone else to help you out, they can also consistently make pieces that look like they came from you. Images, either, use the same photographer, you learn how to photograph so it all looks like the same place, or use pictures from the same, photographic series, instead of reinventing the wheel every single time. And then logos are vital for consistency on websites, or actually on anywhere. Your logo, in fact, the logo is probably the one thing that is consistent across everything. Goosefoot, we're slowly tweaking our branding. So our website has a new color palette that we're slowly integrating into other pieces that we put out. But again, going back to this brochure that I showed earlier, this is not the same color palette that exists on our website. We're fine with that because this is Bayview Corner specifically. But the Goosefoot logo is, I think it's on here. If it's not on here, it is on the note. Yeah, so the Goosefoot logo is the one consistent piece that's on everything, no matter where it is. It's on these slides right now. So the logo is the fastest, instantaneous recognition for your business. You should rarely, if ever, change it. Because logos do such heavy lifting and they're so vital. If you're an amateur graphic designer, you can make your own logo, but this is the one area I would really recommend hiring a professional to make for you, because you want something that captures the feel and the main focus of your business, but carries a lot of weight in a very small amount of space, and something that you are almost never going to change. Take a look at the Goosefoot logo, for example. I believe we've had this for at least 18 years. I'm not sure exactly when it was implemented. Nice, simple, just a Goosefoot working for a thriving South Whidbey. It's really the G that does the most heavy lifting. It's the ripples. The one small pebble dropped in creates a ripple effect that grows out into the community. That says a lot in a very limited amount of space, and it takes a professional to do something that simple but that effective. So by all means, I'm going to give you the tools to do a lot of graphic design by yourself, but logos, I would recommend hiring a graphic designer, and specifically someone who specializes in logos. Anyway, consistent branding, make your pieces look like they all came from the same place. Color theory is your friend. There's so much studies out there about what different colors mean and what they evoke in people. I've just got this table up here because it kind of gives you, the major colors broken down into like 3 to 5 of their, big moods that they evoke. And so you should use color theory, not just in your logo when you're creating it, which is really what's shown on this, but pretty much every piece you do. Any of your brochures, your graphics, anything, your background colors should kind of lean on, and background and accent colors should really lean on color theory. These are well-established principles that have been studied to the end of the earth and back. People do respond to colors. If you are trying to evoke a certain mood with your graphic piece and you're ignoring color theory, you're probably going to be fighting an uphill battle. Or you could conversely stumble into something that your piece is saying without you intending it to do that. So look up color theory, look up, colors for relaxation or trustworthiness or whatever it is that you're trying to convey with your piece, and incorporate those kind of colors into your pieces. So now we're getting into some examples of what not to do, and then I will show you guys some good examples, and then we'll get into tools and platforms. So again, feel free to ask questions at any point or share your own thoughts and observations. So this one is one of my least favorite posters I've ever seen in my life. There are 5 different fonts going on here. It's incredibly distracting, and they clearly didn't have a good mental picture of what was going to happen with this. They used graphics that have details that you can only see in color, and then they ran off a bunch of the flyers in black and white. And then they copied and photocopied it so much that it lost a lot of its definition. So visually, this looks terrible. The fonts are very distracting. I don't even know, other than the start at, Scout's birthday party ceramic service. Other than that, my eyes do not know where to go first. I think there's genuinely some overlap between this reservations needed and the age 7 to 14. Um, it's a mess and it's not good. You can definitely see how they got to this point by learning, but there's so many things happening. They've got this scout / birthday party. I don't know why these things are together. They've got the ages. They also have information about adult sessions. They also have, this request the form at 1 to 2 weeks in advance is way bigger than all of these things that are way more important, or the contact information. So there's no hierarchy of what's important. There's no grouping of what information should go together. It's a mess. This one is also a mess. There's so many different fonts and colors going on. There's very little white space. This is a great example of what I was talking about, of being afraid of white space and cramming as much information into it as much as possible so that you don't feel like you're missing out on anything. My eyes genuinely do not know where to start on this. Just trying to look at it, my eyes jump around the page a lot. There's no natural flow to it. There's no guidance on the structure on how to read it or where to go. It's a mess. And again, this is another one that if it ever got photocopied or printed off in black and white, it would become unreadable very, very quickly. These two. They're running off the edges of the pages. There's no cohesive structure to them. Your eyes do not know where to start. It sort of jumps around the page. This one, the background is so messy. I put this one in and talked about it in 6 different classes before I once figured out what it was actually advertising, this one on the right. The one on the left has a ton of colors going on in it. None of them particularly go very well together. There's, it's clearly like an event, like a festival kind of thing. They just crammed as much possible into it. They didn't stay focused at all. They've got quotes on the far left side. They've got I think at least 3 different classes going on in here. Logos get tricky because it's something you offer to people whenever you're going out for sponsorship. But the one on the right has a way better, smarter way of laying that out than this one on the left does, of just cramming it all in as tightly as possible. So you can see it's so easy to fall down this path, to think, oh, we have to have a flashy background, otherwise it's not going to draw attention. We have to cram as much information in so that we get all of the stuff we need to say into it. Let's try different fonts to mix it up. Let's have different colors. But each of those little individual choices in trying to make something more exciting just completely loses the message and makes the overall piece completely miss the mark. It's not doing your business or organization any favors. It's gone really, really quickly. So it would be way better to strip all of these back to the basics and get back to focusing in on what is the key information that we need to get out, and who is actually going to read this piece, and where is it going to be distributed. They look like old party flyers. Yeah, exactly. But some people are still making these. So now that we've looked at a few examples of what not to do, let's look at some examples of what works. This one is nice and simple. There's genuinely just 2008 Student Art Show, the date, the location and time, and then some key things and the logo. There's 4 to 5 things on this. They're all in service of that art show. It's super hyper focused, and it's very cutely stylized for the event that it is. It's a student art show. In fact, this might actually have been staged as a photograph And then just this piece might have been edited on afterwards, but the rest of them actually look like they're handwritten and they just stuck it to this angle board and they laid it out perfectly and then took a picture of it. Very unique use if you are not skilled in editing, which I'm sure these guys are. They have a graphic design course. But it's very cute. It's very focused. They don't have the name of every single artist that's going to be involved. They don't have quotes. They don't even have a web address because it's all the information you absolutely need to get where you want to go. This one is very nice and basic and simple. It's probably more in line with what some of you are able to do skill set wise. It does not need to be flashy. It's very focused. Aikido classes. The lines are beautiful. This white space is so nice to guide the eyes. Even though they have information on both sides, it's very easy to start and follow the flow down. And even if you do start on the left side rather than the right side, none of it gets lost or doesn't make sense. It's very clear that these guys had planned to print these off in black and white from the start, which is way more cost effective if you're a small business or organization. Then color gets expensive really quickly. I think the last time I checked my local print shop, they could do black and white for like 15 cents, or they could do color for like $1. That's a huge difference when you're printing off really high quantities. So black and white is fine. Also, this text lines up beautifully with this line. And then it doesn't line up with this box, but it lines up with all of the text is on this same line. If I were to put a ruler on the screen, it would be beautifully and perfectly aligned. It only actually has one font. It's just that these two are in caps lock, and then some of these are bold and some of these are regular and some of these are italicized. Nice, simple, very smooth, very easy to read. Your eye is guided through it. And everything lines up really nicely. Craft fair, super cute, simple, genuinely, again, if only the important parts. Craft fair, there's the dates and times, there's the location, here's the 6 or so categories that are represented at it, and there is the address and the cost. They don't have pictures on here of every single type of art that's going to be there. They don't have too much information, and it's very, they don't have a big flashy image. They've just got this outline of the scissors and this frame at the top. It's very typographically focused, so it's very focused on the text instead of the image. Sometimes absolutely an opportunity to do that. You can do some really cool stuff, especially with some custom fonts, where you can only have text on the graphic and it still looks really cool. So you don't have to have a picture every single time. Again, nice, simple, focused. And again, it's got this nice right align. Everything falls onto the same right line. You're not trying to center everything. That's a thing I see a lot of new graphic artists try to do. They center everything and they don't know why. Right or left align is always going to be better. You want that nice clean edge if you can have it. Here's a really nice brochure that is not afraid of white space. As you can see, they have these entire panels where there's just an image in the background or just a pattern. There's nothing else going on here, and all of the text is confined to a very small space in the center. There's some very nice, cool retro graphic elements on this that fit really well with the style of business. And, styles or salons, obviously, barbershops have like a ton of different services they do, but they stayed focused. They're focusing only on the big things. Obviously, there's other options once you get in, when you have to go to the place or go to their website. I'm sure it breaks down more, but the brochure is focused. The colors are very consistent. It's only got 2 different kinds of fonts in here. It's very intentional. It's very pleasing to look at. This is something I would keep a hold of because I love the look of it. I love how nice and clean and simple everything is. And these guys are like, a lot of this text is centered, which is something I just mentioned on the last one. But again, it's that retro style, you know, this era of text was very like centered font. So it works for the style. If you're going for something more modern, you want those nice clean edges of a right or left align. This one has some nice little cute touches on it. It's a roofing company, and all of these angles, everything, almost everything in it, the background is at this angle that is very, very evocative of roofs. So immediately, as soon as you pick this up, you know exactly what kind of a brochure it is. You know what the company does. Again, they have people in the pictures. So simple, but so effective. Put people in your pictures. The colors are all very consistent to the colors within their logo. And the fonts are all very consistent. This layout is so nice and clean. And it really follows. I think this might get tricky. I haven't seen this one in person. So this might get a little tricky with the fold. Anytime you work with a print shop on something like a brochure, they'll talk to you about allowances and bleeds and all of that fun stuff. So on a fold, these words are going to get cut right off on the fold. And then this panel is going to be folded over. So you're actually not going to be able to read some of these words. So I might actually change that if I were doing this one. But knowing how your piece is going to look, you know, it's so easy when you're designing the piece to only look at the whole and be like, all right, this is what my piece looks like. This is fine. But you have to remember, it's not always going to be looked at as a whole. People are going to pick it up and they're going to look at it this way or look at it this way. Or, you know, people are going to do different things with your piece. So it's really important to know how each piece works alone and how each piece works together, especially on something like a brochure that is folded. Rack cards. Rack cards are a lot of fun. If you're not familiar with that term, brochures, you know, are these tri-fold or quarter-fold. There's so many different kinds of fold. So it folds out and then it folds up into one piece. A rack card is double-sided. There's no folds to it. It is just this width. And it's on a little thicker paper so that it will stand up on its own without flopping over. I think 9x4 is the standard, but again, you got to work with your printer to see what size of rack cards they do. Some of the biggest things with rack cards, if you're going that route, they are cheaper than brochures, which is why a lot of folks do them. When somebody picks up a rack card and they look at either side of it, and then they put it back in the rack, they don't always put it back the correct way. So your rack card and your brochure, anything that's going in an upright rack, needs to work from the back or from the front just as well, because people are going to put it in backwards. So if you have your business name on the top at the front, and then someone flips it around and puts it back in backwards, and there's nothing on the back side, or at least not, you know, not your business name, people aren't going to know what it is. And the next person coming along to that rack is not going to pick it up. So you want to make sure your name, you're the most important information, which for 99% of you is going to be the name of your business or organization. You want to make sure that is in the top 1 inch of both sides of the piece. I keep picking this up just because it's what is within reach of me, but Historic Bayview Corner is the top inch and it's on the back as well. Historic Bayview Corner. That way, if this got put in backwards, the rack comes up to about here until the next row of stuff is down here. So only this is visible. That is what people are going to pick up. So make sure it works from the top on either side, which is again, you know, Museum of Northwest Art, Museum of Northwest Art. In a rack, this would get a little cut off, but you would still see museum, which is enough for most people to pick it up. They kept nice, clean images. And again, they put people in their images. Even this bottom one, where there's a collage of a bunch of different images, there's still a person standing in front of them looking at them. That, again, so much easier for me to project myself onto her than if I was just looking at this wall of collage images. It's very easy to get lost when there that many pictures are happening. I'm very overwhelmed. But now that there's a person standing in front of it, so much easier to project myself onto that. This is very clearly the front of the rec card, just nice, super simple, two big pictures of their exhibits. The Museum of Northwest Art connects people with the art, diverse cultures, and environments of the Northwest. Probably their mission statement, their vision. That's what most of you are going to need, just your nice mission statement right there. What are you about? And then on the back, you can have more information. Where are you located? How do people contact you? What are you about? You can definitely have some more information, but again, this is still all max one sentence. So it's very light words. Your graphic pieces are not the place for you to get really in depth. You don't want articles there. You want to use your graphic pieces to point people to where the full article is. And again, most important thing, in my opinion, right here is free admission. So I would actually maybe move this up here. I would put free admission much higher. If you have something free to offer, a free map, a free admission, anything like that, free at the top of your rack card or brochure. Certified Folders has done studies on this. They're the company that distributes all of the rack cards and brochures to the ferries, hotels, chambers, airports, all of those places you see those big rack displays. They've done studies on this. Putting free at the top of your brochure will get, or rack card will get a lot more people to pick it up. So if that's your goal, which that should be the goal of these pieces, if you have something free to offer, bait and switches are only going to get people very upset with you. But if you have something to offer, put that right up at the top where it grabs people's attention. This one is the one I was referring to when I said sometimes if you have multiple programs or multiple audiences, you need to make multiple pieces. The Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise has multiple programs. And so as you can see, they made 3 separate rack cards. One of them is targeted at prospective homeowners, people who want to get into owning home. The second one is targeted at people who are already in a home but need some much needed repairs and need assistance with that. The third one are people, again, already in their homes but are facing monetary troubles and foreclosures. And there's the support program they have for that. Taken all together, these have different images and different main colors, but they all, again, as I was saying earlier, they all look like they came from the same organization. They work together very well. If you were putting these up in a rack display, these would be put next to each other in 3 separate slots, which is a lot more eye-catching than when you have your one solo little slot. So again, instead of trying to get the most bang for your buck by shoving as much stuff into one piece as you physically can fit, it's far better to split it up and make multiple separate pieces so that you can be really effective at the thing this piece needs to do, rather than diluting the message to try to reach as many people and therefore not reaching any of them. So stay focused, stay clear, consider making multiple pieces. Social media graphics is, one of the newer fields, but in my opinion, it is the most fun. Social media graphics are great. You put them up on, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you are. All of them have different requirements, different sizes, different orientations. But out of all the graphics you might ever make, they are the ones that really need to be the most focused and the punchiest. If you look at this whole spread that's on the screen right now, not a I think the most words any of them have is 10. And that might either be the oral surgeon or the advanced medical research. Whenever you get into those fields, they do get a little wordy, but vintage photography, nothing beats classic. Intensive writing, 3 easy steps. Recipes just for you. View now. And they've got these, they're so simple and focused. It's not extraneous words. They're not worried about logos, because the biggest thing with social media graphics is a lot of people have done a lot of studies. When there is too much words on the image, people skip over them. They just keep scrolling in their feed. they're not effective. And so therefore, a lot of social media sites will not show your post to very many people if it has too much words in the graphic. Words are for the caption for the post itself. Your image needs to stay focused and deliver a lot of bang in a very small package. So again, I would keep it around 5 words. You absolutely can leave your logo off of social media graphics because your logo is at the top or the bottom of the post, depending on which platform you're on. It's already on every single post you make. You can see these ones, especially the call to action is there on almost every single one of them. View more info, view now, find out more, contact us for more information. So it tells people those few words that are on the screen are reserved for what is this and what should you do about it. They're focused, they are punchy, and the images on all of these are so appealing. So the images can be the hardest part, but there are a lot of places to get ready-made, really high quality images, or go out there and take some of your own. Cool. I think that's the last example I've got, and we still have plenty of time. Does anybody have any particular questions on some of these do's or don'ts? And then we'll move on to platform tools and platforms. I know this is a ton of information I'm throwing at you guys, somewhat less so than I do in my other classes, because a lot of it's just re-emphasizing the same point over and over. But yeah, if you guys have questions at any point, please feel free to ask. So design tools. Now you've seen what not to do and what to do, but how do you do it? Free. I say free. Microsoft does actually cost money, but most of your systems probably have the Microsoft suite on them for free. So if you have Microsoft Word, they do have some pretty decent basic templates for a lot of different flyers, rack cards, brochures, business cards. So they have a lot of really decent templates that you can use for free through Microsoft. GIMP is a program that is like a open source version of Photoshop. I don't know if GIMP is better than Inkscape. I think Inkscape is a little bit better. GIMP is like Photoshop from about 10, 15 years ago. You can do a lot more, I think, with GIMP, but Inkscape is a lot more approachable. I know my roommate tends to use Inkscape a lot more. I just don't have personal experience with Inkscape. So GIMP is a program you can download for free. Anybody can use it for free. And you can do basically everything you can in Photoshop, just it's a much older version, so it's not quite as clean and streamlined. Yeah, if you're using Inkscape, stick with it. Like I said, that's what my roommate uses. Canva is probably my favorite tool. I'll actually pull it up when we're done with all of these slides and I'll show it to you guys. Canva makes graphic design very easy to make very nice looking things. And you can do a lot with the free account. I do also have it under paid because there are some upgraded paid accounts you can buy into that give you more options and more control, but even free Canva can let you do a whole lot. LucidPress is a little bit like Canva. It's just a different platform if for some reason you don't like Canva or you don't like the options. And then obviously Adobe Creative Suite is probably the biggest known one. This is your Photoshops, your Illustrators, your InDesigns. Pretty much every professional I know uses those, but also they cost a lot of money. I probably pay several $100s to Adobe every single year, but I use it often enough that it is worth it for me. I'm not saying it's worth it for you. And then obviously you can also go the professional route. You might have sat through this whole class and gone, this is just so much to worry about and so many things to keep track of, and it's not in my interest or wheelhouse. I don't want to do it. You can always just pay someone else to do it. There are graphic designers in pretty much every single community I know of. And a lot of print shops have their own in-house graphic designer that can help as well, either to improve your piece or to design it from scratch. Same with a lot of advertising venues. So the newspaper has graphic designers that can help you. All of the print shops I know of on Woodbey can do the design for you if you would like. It might cost a little bit of extra money than just doing it yourself, but it is an option. Resources. So color.adobe.com is one of the newer ones I'm aware of, but I like it. It's really cool. It gives you suggested color palettes based on one color or theme. It opened up in my other window, which is not what I want. Come back here. There we go. Okay, hopefully y'all can still see that. So this is color.adobe.com/explore. You can search a specific color, mood, or keywords like ocean, wine, moonlight, lucky, water. And they have these really cool color palettes. So let's see, one of you is a dog walker. So if you search for dog walker, just gotta think about it. Ta-da, color palettes. You can use any of these. If you open them on up, you're like, oh, I really like this one. That works for me really well. Click on it and boom, there's the hexadecimal color codes that you can use pretty much any of the programs I just talked about to get this exact color palette. So this takes a lot of the guessing out if you're wondering about colors. I think it's a really fun tool. I spend a lot of time just looking at color palettes, just like I do fonts. And again, this is totally free. So thanks, Adobe. You can also see, what's trending right now. Fashion is nice, really pretty color palettes for pretty much every mood you could ever think of. Whoa, this isn't this isn't where we were. Come back. There we go. If you're looking at fonts, one of the biggest places I get my font inspiration from, I will genuinely just kind of Google, great font combinations. A lot of these sites, there's so many sites that are Creative Block is always a great one. And they'll give you good pairings of fonts that are really fun to go together. General tips, and then different font combinations. So I'll run with this sometimes just to get inspiration. But another thing I'm frequently doing is I'll be looking at different websites and I'll be like, oh, I like the fonts this website uses. Or if I get a new client that's like, can you just use the same fonts on my website? And I'm like, okay, what fonts do you have on your website? And they're like, I don't know. What font has a browser extension for Chrome? That it's a little icon that pops up in the top corner of Chrome, and you can click on it, and then it'll turn your mouse into a highlight cursor instead. It's what font? Oops, let me go back. So what font? Oh, you mean the color block one I was looking at earlier? Sorry. Like I said, I just do Google searches, but creativeblock.com is usually a pretty good source to look at font combinations. So yeah, what font you'll turn your mouse into a cursor, so you can just highlight fonts on existing websites and it'll tell you what font, what size, whether it's bolded or not. So that's very helpful in my opinion. It's something I use pretty regularly. And then, yeah, like I said earlier, I will just Google good font combinations. There's a lot of really good fonts for free. Google Font is a great source, but there's also, I have recently got into the very bad habit of buying fonts, and that can go downhill really quickly. So just careful with that. I'm not kidding when I can spend days just with fonts. And that's why, it's really important for you to figure out what font works for you and stick to that same one instead of having to, pick a font from scratch every single time you do something. I think Goosefoot's gotten a lot easier in my life because now we stick with spend a lot of fonts and barely use any of them. Matt gets it. That's where I am constantly. But yeah, so Goosefoot with our site redesign and a lot of our graphics, now we're sticking to Techo for headers and Open Sans for body text. That takes a lot of my guessing out and starts streamlining a lot of my design processes. Design assets. So this is your layouts, your pictures, your fonts, those kinds of fun things. I should update this a little bit. So for Illustrator or Photoshop files, elegantflyer.com has some. Free Pick is my go-to. Again, I'll go ahead and show you guys that. So I spent a lot of time on Free Pick. I went ahead and paid for the updated membership, but they have vector assets that you can use for Illustrator, Photoshop, and some of the others. You might be able to use it for Inkscape and stuff like that as well. A lot of these graphics that you can use. Great example, I just finished a pho restaurant website the other day or a couple months ago, and I used a lot of pictures from there. You can also pull specific graphics, and you can actually let them know, I want to see vectors, I want to see photos, I want to see Photoshop files, I want to see just icons. So these are some really great assets that you can use. Most of these are free. If it has a gold crown, you do need to have a paid membership to access it, but there's a lot of options on here for free. And then you can also stick to just photos as well if you want to go that route. So this is a site I spend a lot of my time on. Free photos. Another great site is Pixabay. And again, I'll send these slides out. Pixabay is a free, royalty-free stock image database with millions and millions and millions. Yes, so all of these photos on both Pixabay and Free Pick are copyright free. They are uploaded by the original creator. They do have information in them. So if you click on it, go away. It actually gives you, this is a person who created it, and it gives you the license information. I need you to go away. So, with the license, you can use it for in these places for these things, and here's how you do the crediting. Did I close Pixabay? I think I did. Oops. Yeah. A lot of newbies will try to do like Google images search. Don't do that. Most images that come up on Google image search are copyrighted. You can get in trouble if you use them. There are ways to set Google to only give you stuff that does have an open license that anyone can use, but I find their selection very limited and very poor quality. So I almost never go to Google Images. I will stick to one of these sites I know. Other folks that do this probably know even more. You're welcome to drop those in the chat as well. These are just the ones that I use the most frequently. So again, Pixabay, you can search pretty much anything. We'll look at dog walking again. This top bar is iStock or another like bigger stock image repository. You do have to pay for these. So I usually skip right over this top bar and just go straight down to the images down here. I can use any of these for free. And same thing, once you actually click into it and you look at it, here's the license. Free for commercial use, no attribution required. So yeah, again, ignore these images. These are all from a paid site, but a lot of options in here. And it gives you a good place to start. Obviously, the best idea would be to take your own pictures or to hire somebody to take pictures of your specific business or organization. But I know for a lot of you guys starting out, that isn't an option. So these are just really great places to get some resources to help you get started. So if you want some free creative fonts, Duffont, FontSpace, and Font Squirrel are my usual go-tos to try to find some free ones. They will also link you to some paid ones because some fonts you have to buy. I think it's Font Squirrel. Font Squirrel is down a whole lot lately. They're just off, the site's often down. So be careful with that. But there's a lot of places to get some cool free fonts as well. I think Google Fonts was the other one I mentioned. A lot of Google fonts you can download for free too. So if you're doing like a website or a newsletter, be a little cautious with fonts. If it is not a common font that is found on most people's computer, if their computer does not have the font file and you don't have, there are certain ways you can like upload the font to your website depending on what it is. But especially for newsletters, if their computer or device doesn't have that font, it'll automatically convert the font into something they do have. So it might not look the same to them. So for things that are really common, like a website or a newsletter, I would stick to commonly found fonts. That way it looks the same for everybody. I steer away from custom fonts in those instances. So brief review, and then it'll just be open to questions. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. This is the guiding advice for anybody doing anything visual. Keep it simple. You are going to get a lot farther. Brand consistency. Use the same color palette, the same type of wording, the same tone of voice. Use the same kind of images. You are going to get bored of your branding pieces way faster than anyone else is, because you're the one that's been staring at it over and over through every iteration, through every edit. But other people aren't going to get bored. Look at Geico. They've had that stupid gecko as their, in some way or another, involved with the business for pretty much my entire life. And they do change it subtly and slightly over time. I think now he's directly working with the company, where he used to get annoyed with them. But it's consistent across the years, so that you always know this means that. So stay consistent in every piece you put out. Don't worry about getting bored with your pieces. You are going to be bored of your piece way before anybody else will. Make sure it's readable from a distance, whether it's because people's eyesights are failing, or if it's going to be something in print and they might see it across the room or in passing. It needs to be able to capture people's attention. The specific details like locations or web address or stuff like that can be read smaller, but the punchiest, most important parts need to be readable from a distance. Visuals are everything. Get a good picture, invest your money into that, or your time. Get good quality pictures. You might be able to tell, I'm going to talk about this more on Saturday with our getting started with video class, but I have invested in lighting in this room, because otherwise it's very dark and you can't see me very well. It's that little extra notch that knocks you up from amateur into looking like a professional. So make sure you invest some time in your visuals, because they're carrying a lot of weight for your organization, for your business, for the messages you're putting out. So do not rush the visuals. Put people in your pictures. It's so much easier to project yourself onto a person when there is a person to project yourself onto. So put them in your pictures, even if it's just a hand or a foot or the back. Human beings in pictures goes a lot longer. Make sure you stay focused. It's so easy to think, I need to get all of this. All of this is really important, and it all needs to be included in that piece, but it is not true. People who are interested are going to search out your website or other pieces where you can put more information. You do not need to put all of the information in every single piece. I just got a really cool invite from an organization I've been supporting for a while that's doing a fundraising dinner sometime soon. In the email itself, it just said fundraising dinner, $10. Here's the location, here's the date. Here's the link to go get tickets. And then when you click on that, it breaks down on that page. Once I've already been invested enough to click the button, then they tell me, this is what we're serving. This is how your donation impacts the organization. This is what we're doing. You can put more information somewhere where people who want to seek it out can, but it is not cluttering it up for people who are just looking for really quick information. Proofread it 3 times, 30 times, 50 billion times, get other people to look at it in different formats, off screen, on screen, in different fonts, in different colors. Because once it has gone to print, inevitably you will find an error, but it is important to eliminate as many of those errors as you can, and to make it as impactful as possible before it goes to print and costs you a lot of money. I don't think I told this story earlier, but one of my first document design jobs in college, I got hired to do the program guide for the National Conference on Undergraduate Research that my university was hosting. I had spent months on this thing. I gathered information from every department on campus. My boss looked at it. Somebody else looked at it. It got approved. It went to print. And then we were looking at the print and I had written the wrong building name for every event that was in one building. Hundreds of pages of the wrong building name in this final print edition, and none of us had caught it. So we had to print up an extra piece of paper to slip into all of the guides that say, hey, when the guide says this building, it actually means this building. Horribly embarrassing. Do your best to eliminate those as much as possible by getting other people to look at it. Run a test print. Again, especially if you're doing something like a brochure or a guide, or even just flyers, anything that is going to print, print it off. It doesn't matter if it's a little cheaper on your home printer, or even at the library. If you're within Snow Isle Libraries area, you can get prints for free to up to a certain amount. I think there's like a $7 print budget for every person every single week. Run it off just to make sure, does stuff get cut off? Is everything in the right place? Does it look funny in print where it looked fine on my screen? This is especially important for colors if you're really picky on colors, because everybody's monitors are different. They show color in a different way. So you might have tweaked and something looks perfect on your screen. And so you send it off to the printer and you get it back and you're like, that's not the color of purple I had picked at all, because your monitor is a different color. So make sure you run it off if it is a print anything, to make sure it still looks fine. And when you're working on any of these graphic design projects, don't forget the printing budget. Especially for organizations, you might think, oh, we can get a volunteer to design this piece. Well, cool, but it still costs money to print it, whether it's your home printer and you just need to buy extra ink and paper, or maybe thicker paper, whether you're running it off at the library and you can only print so many pieces, whether you're sending it to a professional print shop, it's going to cost money to get it printed, even if you get the labor donated. So make sure you are budgeting for that. So question time. I would not recommend calling me if you have questions after the fact, because I'm not actually in the office. As you can tell, I'm still working from home, but my email is right there. You guys are welcome to email me any questions you've got. Even after this class, I'm happy to help. But now it's the time for you guys to ask questions. So go ahead and pop those questions in chat or in the Q&A function. This is your time. Or if you'd like to leave early, that's fine too. While you guys are hopefully typing away, we have one last class in this set. We have getting started with video next Saturday, this Saturday. So in 2 days on the 11th. I'll be talking some intros about how to get started with video, as that's becoming a very quickly expanding field. But yeah, so I don't have any classes that go into typography design, unfortunately. That's a little more in depth. We tend to teach very intro level classes here. I would recommend going to more specific teachers for stuff like that. I'd love to someday, but my bosses keep me on intro level stuff that is appealing to as many people as possible. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording because this is the important part, and then I will continue with your questions.